Hello and welcome. Tonight's presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, reaffirms his resolve to restore peace in troubled areas as he takes his campaign to Zamfara State. As the presidential campaign train of the All Progressives Congress moves to Akwa Ibom State, the party's flag bearer, Bola Tinubu, promises to make the state an export hub in the region. Governor Nyesom Wike accuses the national leadership of the PDP of anti-party activity for taking over cases instituted by the party's leadership in Rivers State. And at least 59 persons have died, with 150 others injured following a bombing at a mosque in the Pakistani city of Peshawar.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's total debt stock rises by 2.84% to 44.06 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2022.
On sports news tonight, Everton confirmed former Burnley boss Sean Dyche as their new manager on a 2.5-year contract with a mandate to save the Toffees from relegation.
From Abuja, President Muhammadu Buhari says international groups are sponsoring terrorism in the country as he inaugurates projects in Kano State.
To the Labour Party, where the presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, says he's running for president because he believes he is the most competent and capable of the three major candidates to fix the country following the unprecedented slide to poverty and insecurity today. Campaigning in Dutse, the Jigawa state capital, Mr. Obi promised to birth a new Nigeria by unlocking the potential of the North through agriculture and quality education. He says Nigeria is too blessed to have 133 million people in multi-dimensional poverty. Mr. Obi urged the people to vote for him as the only candidate with proven antecedents and character who they can trust not just to make empty promises but deliver on his manifesto for a better country.
I assure you that we are committed to a new Nigeria. The Nigeria you see today is Nigeria of insecurity, Nigeria of poverty, Nigeria of no work, Nigeria of no health, Nigeria of no school. That's the one we want to change. For several years, you have been under insecurity, poverty. They've closed your borders. There's no work. The Nigeria we're offering you is a new Nigeria, where there will be security, Nigeria that will be united, Nigeria where there will be jobs.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says Nigeria is stirring disunity in the face because many leaders are more concerned about their selfish interests than the survival and health of the nation. The former president made the statement in Abuja while felicitating with the Old Students Association of the Federal Government College Kaduna on its 50th anniversary. Chief Obasanjo believes appointments in government are skewed and lopsided on the basis of nepotism and mediocrity, with disregard for merit and competence.
In addition to the economic hardships, there is political mischief. Never have we been so politically divided along religious, ethnic, and other fault lines, and deliberately so. Appointments in government are skewed and lopsided on basis of nepotism and mediocrity and disregard of merit and competence. Elections are here and may compound the problem. Political parties and politicians have now been emboldened to discuss some of the things that were put in place to give all groups a sense of belonging. Exclusion is being taken as normal. Disunity stares us in the face, and many of our leaders are more concerned about their selfish interests than the survival and health of our nations. Let me reiterate that the concerns being raised about the nature of the option before us in the presidential election, for instance, are real and should not be trifled with. Nigeria belongs to us all, and no part of the country should be left in doubt about their place in this union on any basis whatsoever.
Still ahead of the elections, the challenges associated with the collection of the permanent voter cards can be mitigated if eligible Nigerians are allowed to vote without using a physical card. That's the suggestion coming from a professor of political economy and convener of the Big Tent, Professor Pat Utomi, during an interactive session with journalists in Lagos. The chieftain of the Labour Party also maintains that INEC must be adaptive to ensure people are not disenfranchised.
We want to suggest other ways of ensuring that every Nigerian gets their voter's card. I have suggested, for example, that perhaps we should deploy the private sector in its citizens' duty role. Lagos Chamber of Commerce, Nigeria Economic Summit Group, can volunteer to organize and collect from INEC on a polling booth basis all the voters' cards that have not been distributed, announce a day or two during which they will send people to go to specific polling booths and stay there and distribute voters' cards. Bear in mind that this is a biometric thing, so it doesn't matter if, for any strange reason, that's the fear INEC, it's security reason, one goes missing. We'll investigate and deal with it. But I know that these organizations have so much to protect that nothing like that is likely to happen. But even if something does happen, the security excuse for not going that route will be defeated by the fact that it's essentially a biometric instrument. In fact, I have argued that we are forcing over these voters' cards as if they really are important in a biometric scenario. All that is important now is your face and your thumbprint, your fingerprint.
Staying with the elections, the European Union and the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, IFES, are promising a strong partnership with the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for a credible poll. Speaking at separate events in Abuja, officials of the European Union and those of the International Foundation for Electoral Systems underscore the importance of ensuring that the 2023 general elections are peaceful and credible.
The European Union office in Nigeria is preparing for the 2023 general elections, and this news conference is an opportunity for the delegation to give an update on their level of preparations for the exercise. The mission plans to deploy 100 observers to monitor the presidential elections.
It's no secret that we live in an age globally when democracy is under attack. When democracy is in retreat, some people have described it as a democratic recession. And so, as to the number of observers, as I mentioned before, we deployed 40 long-term observers yesterday in 20 teams of 2, and they will be joined by locally recruited short-term observers, and so that we will have 100 observers when it comes to election day itself.
Less than 30 days to the presidential election, the INEC chairman is receiving more visitors, and the latest is from the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, who are visiting to show their support for the Commission's promise to deliver a credible election.
The people of Nigeria, with the leadership of the Commission, have made such important strides in the strengthening and consolidation of democracy and electoral integrity throughout the country. Nigeria's leadership in Africa and indeed around the world is an inspiration to people in consolidated and struggling democracies around the world.
On the part of the Commission, we are given our commitment that the election is going to be free, fair, and credible. and the will of Nigerians will prevail. The largest chunk of materials required for the election, both sensitive and non-sensitive, are already in various locations.
The Commission has implemented 12 of the 14 activities scheduled ahead of the election on February 25.
Let's take you now back to our top story of the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, who was in Gusau, the Zamfara state capital, where he promised to restore peace and security.
The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, arrives at the Gusau Trade Fair complex and is welcomed by a crowd of supporters. The PDP presidential candidate and his campaign team mount the stage, miming a song to indicate that the party is rising. The campaign rally attracted residents of the state who are mostly farmers, and Mr. Abubakar promises to tackle issues affecting their farming.
I have promised if you elect a PDP government, both at the national and the state level, we will restore security in Zamfara state, not only in Zamfara state, all over the country. After we restore security, we will make sure your businesses and agriculture sector of the economy is revived. We will also ensure that we open the land borders between Nigeria and our neighbors.
Members of his entourage appreciate the people for the reception, assuring them that the party will not disappoint them when they get into office.
I am very convinced that we have already won with over 80% votes in Zamfara. And I thank you for rejecting the APC, because the APC brought insecurity to us. They brought hunger, but Atiku is coming to drive away the hunger. All those traders that we have in Zamfara, I can assure you that we have plans for you, and by the grace of God, trading will continue in this state. And there's so much other things that we are going to do in 2023 after taking power from APC, inshallah.
The PDP is optimistic that it will regain power in the state, and these residents in Zamfara state are looking forward to the fulfillment of the promises made to them by the party. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, we'll have more on political campaign stories. Plus, Channels Media Group and London School of Economics and Political Science launched first of its kind youth-centered podcast known as the Klein Podcast. That's in a moment. You stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, reaffirms his resolve to restore peace in troubled areas as he takes his campaign to Zamfara State. As the presidential campaign train of the All Progressives Congress moves to Akwa Ibom, the party's flag bearer, Bola Tinubu, promises to make the state an export hub in the region. Governor Nyesom Wike accuses national leadership of the PDP of anti-party activities for taking over cases instituted by the party's leadership in River State. And at least 59 persons have died, with 150 others injured following a bombing at a mosque in the Pakistani city of Peshawar. With political campaigns, the national leadership of the People's Democratic Party and Governor Nyesom Wike of River State may be in for another round of political turmoil. This follows the decision of the National Working Committee of the PDP to take over from the River State chapter the right to prosecute the cases instituted by the party's leadership in River State to challenge the conduct of legislative primaries of some opposition parties in the state. Speaking during the River State's PDP campaign rally in Eche local government area today, Governor Wike accused some national officers of the PDP of being involved in anti-party activities. He accused them of being compromised by the opposition parties.
After a few days' break, the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State resumes its campaigns in local government areas with a visit to Iche in Rivers East Senatorial District. This rally at the council headquarters is special to the people following the infrastructure delivery by the PDP administration and the opportunity for an indigene of the area to contest for the senatorial seat for the first time.
Kelechi is an exceptional young man who has stood in the cause of this administration. All the dividends we have enjoyed in a year, Kelechi has become a precursor. They know about the industrial and all the revolution that's taking place.
I want to, on behalf of all the candidates from Eche and Omuma, accept the responsibility of flying this wonderful flag of our great party, PDP.
The governorship candidate promises to build on the record set by Governor Nyesom Wike.
We have done very, very well in Eche, and it is a time for you to tell us you did well. We will continue with you. We will support you. We will protect you. Because you understand the vision.
For Governor Nyesom Wike, the way to go is for Rivers people to return the PDP to power because it has improved their socio-economic status.
No! If you like anybody from Eche there, then from them. Senate all of our know the world. Always go free talk. In go talk. Always go free talk. Not so. In go talk. In go talk. That place, it requires people who go sabi talk.
He also speaks on the crisis in the PDP, vowing to deal with some party members at the national level for allegedly undermining the party in the state.
We are voting for our people here. Not so. Not so. You cannot. Now you have told us you are doing anti-party. We'll show you what anti-party is. Yes, so we have not caught them rather handed. Now they start anti-party. Now they start. Who know the anti-party? Anyway, it has been in their blood. It has been in their blood. Now they don't show their hand. What can I watch for tomorrow? What is going to happen to them?
Earlier, Governor Wike led a delegation of PDP members on a courtesy visit to the palace of the Onyisi Eche, Emmanuel Oporo.
And away from politics, Channels Media Group is again blazing the trail in broadcasting with the launch of a first-of-its-kind youth-centered podcast in partnership with the Feroz Institute for Africa and the London School of Economics and Political Science. Called The Climb Podcast, it is designed to tell extraordinary stories of youth across the African continent, as well as African youth in the diaspora, to celebrate their achievements and encourage their engagement in the growth and development of the continent. Our correspondent Dari Dewu reports.
The target audience for the program is the African youth, and with the birth of The Climb Podcast, their stories of triumph will be celebrated.
Our partners.
These podcasts is a fulfillment of Channels Media Group's vision to provide youth of the continent with a platform to tell their stories.
By featuring stories of African youths in the podcast, this podcast will also seek to encourage more young Africans abroad to contribute their skills and knowledge to finding lasting solutions to some of the major challenges facing the continent.
There are millions of stories to be told. In all honesty, we are already thinking about how we can ensure that we tell as many of these stories as possible. And part of the approach to this is that it's going to be driven by the young people themselves.
when I looked at the launch of this program, the program for this launch, it spoke about extraordinary stories for African youth. And what does it really mean when you say extraordinary? To me, when we say extraordinary, it speaks about stories of resilience, stories of hope, stories of success, stories of challenges, but never giving up. And that's what truly resembles our African youth.
Martin Spinelli, a professor of podcast and creative media, gives a whole new perspective on media habits with interesting data on podcasting in Africa.
The key demographic takeaways are that podcast listeners in Africa are younger, mostly female, more highly educated, more urban, and have more disposable income. Obviously, this is a very attractive demographic, a very attractive set of people for advertisers. But for its female majority listenership, this picture mirrors podcast listening demographics in the US and in Europe.
Chairman of Channels Media Group, Dr. John Momo, speaks on the essence of the podcast, says it will be far-reaching, especially in addressing the continent's many challenges.
The world that we live in today and faces more significant challenges than the one I grew up in. So much more than ever, we need that youthful energy, the ingenuity, the courage, the passion to face up to the profound challenges that we face and to proffer creative solutions to them. Here lies the significance of this podcast that we are launching today. Through the stories that will be told in this podcast, we will be celebrating those young Africans at home and in the diaspora who have summoned up courage to take up these challenges. By telling their stories, we'll also be inspiring legions of other young Africans to take up the mantle and to tap into their own creativity and ingenuity.
The founder of the Firoz Institute and the London School of Economics and Political Science, Mr. Firoz Lalji, explains the goal for the co-production with Channels Television.
Climb Podcast will reach millions of people in Africa and around the world in a diaspora. This is a great opportunity for the youths of Africa to tell their stories and issues that concern them. I'm delighted to see this great initiative between LSE and Channels TV, and my congratulations to Mr. John Momo for driving this initiative.
The Climb Podcast is a 20 to 30 minute story-shaped production holding fortnightly across all podcast sharing platforms across the world, and it's already live on Apple and Spotify. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's total debt stock rises by 2.84% to 44.06 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2022. That's on Business News. Join us again. Welcome back. And to one more political story. The All Progressives Congress presidential candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu, has vowed to prioritize employment opportunities for the vast majority of Nigerians who are willing and ready to work, especially the people of Akwa Ibom State. Speaking at the Nest of Champions Stadium in New York, the Akwa Ibom State capital, Senator Tinubu thanked the people of the state, especially party members who voted for him to emerge as the candidate of the party during the national convention. He, however, says the people will only get the full credit when they all vote and ensure victory for all APC candidates in the general elections.
You are the BBC. If you don't have it, go and take it. This is the revolution.
Correct.
A revolution to change poverty to happiness. To change joblessness to job-full.
Employment.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes!
Akwa Ibom, you hear me?
Yes!
Say God bless me.
God bless you.
Let's now head to our Abuja studios for more stories. Linda Kigbe is standing by with more. Hi, Linda. Over to you.
Hello, Millicent. Good to see you too. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari says there are international groups trying to destroy Nigeria by sponsoring terrorism. The president made the statement in Kano after the commissioning of projects initiated by the federal and state governments. The president, however, says he is pleased with his achievements so far as the commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Our correspondent, Sadiq Ilyasu, has more on the report.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
President Muhammadu Buhari's chopper arrived at the Inland Airport in Kano State.
Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces, Buhari GCFR.
He is on a one-day working visit to the state, where he is expected to commission 8 projects. The projects commissioned by the president include the Dala Inland Airport in Zawachiki, the Data Center at Audubako Secretariat, the Galaxy Backbone Data Center. Other projects commissioned include the Cancer Treatment Center at Muhammadu Buhari Specialist Hospital, the Muhammadu Buhari Road Rotary Interchange at Hotoro, the Dangote Ultra Modern Skills Acquisition Center, and the Federal Housing Units at Darmanawa. During a lunch at the State Government House in Kano State, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Isa Pantami, said the data center commissioned in Kano is the largest in Nigeria.
Historically, this is the first data center, the first public data center in northern Nigeria. And secondly, it is the top data center commissioned in Nigeria. And thirdly, globally, there is no any data center that is over and above Tier 4 data center that has been commissioned here in Kano by His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari.
Governor Abdullahi Ganduje of Kano State appreciates the federal government's effort in the state.
Your Excellency, you are making Kano not only the commercial nerve center of the northern part of this country, but also the commercial nerve center of some West African countries. Your Excellency, we thank you for the recently commissioned 10 megawatt solar plant here in Kano, which is mainly for our Chala industrial areas. Your Excellency, we thank you for the N-Power. We thank you for the everything. We thank you for the major roads leading to Kano.
However, the president is concerned that some international groups are behind the insecurity in the country.
And what is Boko Haram? It's very, very fraudulent. Who said Boko is Haram? It's very, very fraudulent. And I suspect there must be a strong international group that wants to destroy Nigeria. Otherwise, how can Boko Haram come and stop us from prospecting and development petroleum in Lake Chad Basin? But we have managed to show Nigeria and the rest of the world that Kolmani, you know, we have so many billions of crude oil and gas there.
The state government believes that these projects will boost the state's economy. Sadiq Ilyasu, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mikel, is apologizing to Nigerians on the failure of legal practitioners to live up to their responsibilities of offering guidance for the advancement of the country. According to him, the experiences faced in the country presently rest on the neglect of legal practitioners towards providing direction and leadership for the people. The president of the NBA stated this at a national dialogue on the state of the nation in Abuja. A former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Mrs. Dezani Alison Madweke, has initiated a process at the Federal High Court Abuja to have the forfeiture orders of the federal government on properties allegedly linked to her vacated. The federal government had last year secured orders for final forfeiture of properties in Nigeria and abroad, allegedly linked to the former Minister of Petroleum Resources. In a fresh motion filed before the Federal High Court in Abuja by her lawyer and senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Michael Zekome, Mrs. Madueke wants, among others, an order extending the time within which to seek leave to apply to the court for an order setting aside her public notice issued by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, to conduct the public sale on her property. She said the motion is intended against a notice recently issued by the EFCC for disposal of forfeited assets, some of which included those belonging to her. In a supporting the fit of it also, the former minister noted the EFCC plans to conduct a public sale of all forfeited assets beginning from January 9th, as contained in its public notice, following various court judgments or orders issued in favor of the Commission as final forfeiture orders against property and personal effects linked to her. Seeking 5 reliefs, Mrs. Alison Madueke argues, among others, that she was not heard before the orders for forfeiture were issued, thereby denying her the rights. She adds that the forfeiture orders made in respect of assets linked with her were issued by the various courts without jurisdiction. And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Millicent.
Many thanks, Linda. And we'll take you to some business news now. Here's Jeffrey Uzona.
Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's external and domestic debt stock rose by 2.84% to 44.06 trillion naira in the third quarter of last year from 42.84 trillion naira level reported in the second quarter. According to the latest report by the National Bureau of Statistics, it comprises the debt stock of the federal and all the states' government as well as the FCT. The report shows that the country's external debt climbed by 38% to 17 trillion naira, while domestic debt was higher by 61% at 26 trillion naira. Lagos State recorded the highest domestic debt of 877 billion naira, while Jigawa State had the lowest at 44 billion naira. Meanwhile, Nigeria's Eurobond fell sharply today as investors dumped the debt instrument following Moody Investor Service downgrade of the country's currency and credit rating to junk status and the lowest level since 2006. The renewed sell-off in the Eurobond comes after the global rating agency cut the ratings over the weekend to CAA1 from B3, which is only a notch higher than the ratings of Ghana and Mozambique, considered to be in debt crisis. This is largely driven by the expectations that the government's fiscal and debt position will keep deteriorating. Let's talk some company news now. United Bank for Africa, that's UBA PLC, has appointed Abiola Bawe as its new Chief Executive Officer for Africa Operations. Mrs. Bawe is the first female CEO in the bank's history, previously served as the CEO of UBA Ghana. Before her recent appointment, she was the bank's regional CEO for West Africa, managing operations in 9 subsidiaries within the region. Meanwhile, UBA has also announced the appointment of 6 other executives and 1 retirement from its group board. From there, we head to the stock market, where the green is the color that marked the close of today's trading session at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Willie Bond has the details.
Welcome to the Stock Market Report. It's a very bullish close today for equities and a fantastic open on the last 2 trading days. In January, we saw 272 billion naira gained, and that's largely on the back of market giants Airtel Africa and Girigu, which drove the index to cross the 53,000 level. The positive performance was supported by stocks listed in key sectors of the exchange. We saw the banking sector being boosted by the Tier 1 banking stocks. Unilever, PZ, and Dangote Sugar lifted the consumer goods index, while Lafarge boosted the industrial goods sector. It's no surprise, however, to see Girigu on the top gainers list, as the stock price appreciated today by 16 naira to close at 176 naira. It is a positive market breadth. With Moody's downgrade, however, of the country's rating, we might still see more influx into the equities space. And that's the Stock Market Report. And Will Ibang is back to you.
And that's it on Business News. I'm Jeffrey Uzong. It's back to you, Millicent, for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And we're in Lagos, where the governor of the state, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has directed the state Ministry of Justice and relevant authorities to commence the trial of the owner and driver of the ill-fated container-laden truck which fell on a mini commercial bus at the Juelegba Bridge in Surulere area of Lagos on Sunday, killing 9 passengers in the process. A statement by the State Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Mr. Gbenga Omotosho, says the governor directs that the driver of the truck and the owner, who are in police custody, must be prosecuted, and that the Ministry of Transportation and Nigeria Port Authority should meet urgently to find a lasting solution to the menace of falling trucks. The statement adds that all the laws governing the operations of trucks and related vehicles must be enforced with more vigor and diligence. Governor Sanwo-Olu believes that this action will send a strong message to all those who have no regard for other people's lives, and that Lagos will not condone their recklessness. And the Department of State Services, DSS, has arrested some suspected members of organized syndicates involved in the sale of the new redesigned Naira notes. The spokesman for the DSS, Mr. Peter Afunaya, disclosed this in a statement. He says it has also been established that some commercial bank officials are aiding the crime, while urging the appropriate authorities to step up monitoring and supervisory activities to address the emerging trends. The DSS warns the currency racketeers to desist from the act or face the full wrath of the law. Now to some international stories. The death toll has been rising in the bomb attack on a mosque in the Pakistani city of Peshawar. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has blamed terrorists, whom he says want to create fear by targeting those who perform the duty of defending Pakistan. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. At least 32 people have been killed and 150 injured in a bomb blast at a mosque in the Pakistani city of Peshawar. This a video of the immediate aftermath. Officials say a section of the building was destroyed and people are still buried under the rubble. Most of those who died were part of the police force, and it is believed they were the target of the attack. Early reports said a bomber sitting in the front row had blown himself up, but this has not been confirmed and no group has admitted to the bombing. Between 300 and 400 police officials were present in the area at the time of the blast. 8 people have been killed and 4 others injured during a mass shooting at a birthday party in a city in South Africa's Eastern Cape province. 2 unidentified gunmen are thought to have randomly shot at guests who were dancing and mingling at a house party in a local township. No arrests have been made, but a manhunt is underway. It's thought that one of 2 foreign men killed in an avalanche in Japan while backcountry skiing in the central prefecture of Nagano was a US professional skier called Kyle Smain. The men were among 5 foreigners engulfed in Sunday's avalanche, which took place in the ski resort in Nagano. Police declined to confirm details about the men, whom media said were from Austria and the United States. But the magazine Mountain Gazette said in its online edition that the US skier was the 31-year-old Smain. People in flood-hit New Zealand are bracing for more heavy rain this week following new severe weather alerts. Drone footage shows the extent of damage already done to houses and roads. At least 4 people have killed, and a state of emergency order continues in Auckland, which on Friday experienced its worst downpour on record. New Zealand's Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins, said about 350 people needed emergency accommodation. He added there had been significant damage across Auckland and the North Island. The newly appointed Prime Minister also highlighted climate change's role in the extreme weather event.
My focus and the focus of central government is supporting Auckland through what is still, a big challenge ahead of them. There's a big clean-up to go, and of course, we know through the forecasts that there's more bad weather ahead.
What I've done is follow a process, which is the right process. Integrity is really important.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has said he will do whatever was necessary to restore integrity when asked about the sacking of Conservative Party chairman Nadeem Zahawi. Answering reporters' questions during a visit to the north of England, Sunak said he followed the right process over Zahawi. Sunak had initially stood by Zahawi before ordering an independent advisor to investigate questions over his tax affairs after it emerged Zahawi had settled a probe by Britain's tax authorities last year.
When all these questions started coming to light about Nadeem Zahawi, I asked the independent advisor to get to the bottom of it and to provide me with the facts. And then on the basis of the facts, which he did relatively quickly over the course of last week, I was able to make a very quick decision that it was no longer appropriate for Nadeem Zahawi to continue in government, and that's why he's no longer there.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that allowing Russia to compete at the 2024 Olympics in Paris would amount to showing that terror is somehow acceptable. Moscow must not be allowed to use the Olympics for propaganda, he added. He said he had raised the issue with French President Emmanuel Macron. And despite a chilly water temperature of a mere 3.5 degrees Celsius, over 1,000 people attended the 52nd edition of the Danube Winter Swimming in Neuburg in southern Germany. Dressed in wetsuits and costumes, participants from all over Germany and from neighbouring countries such as France and the Czech Republic conquered 4 kilometres of icy water. The event started in 1969 to test the preparedness of the local water rescue service and has been repeated annually ever since. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Relegation threatened Everton FC have appointed former Burnley boss Sean Dyche as their new manager to replace the sacked Frank Lampard. Dyche signed a 2.5-year contract and will take charge for the first time for the Premier League club's clash against leaders Arsenal at Goodison Park on Saturday. Chelsea have made a $130 million bid for Benfica midfielder Enzo Fernandez, which is the player's release clause. If the deal is to go through, it will break the record for the biggest British transfer signing ever. Chelsea want to structure that release clause fee in installments, as paying in one go has financial fair play and tax implications. Manchester City defender João Cancelo is in line for a loan move to Bayern Munich FC before the January transfer window closes. A deal that also includes an option to buy the fullback at $76 million has been agreed. Spain's High Council for Sport has announced that more than 10 Real Valladolid fans who racially insulted Real Madrid star Vinicius Jr. in a La Liga game last month will be punished. Some home fans hurled abuse at the Brazilian winger during Real Madrid's 2-0 win at Valladolid on December the 30th last year, prompting La Liga to file a complaint to the local courts. Real Madrid will take on Clásico rivals Barcelona in the Copa del Rey semi-finals, while Athletic Bilbao will face Osasuna following Monday's draw. Well, the reigning Spanish champions will host Barcelona before visiting the Camp Nou in the only round of Spain's national knockout competition held over 2 legs. Well, the first legs will be played on February the 28th and March the 1st, while the return fixtures will be held between April the 4th and the 6th. And that's a wrap on Sports News. I'm Ayotunde.
And the main news again, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, today reaffirmed his resolve to restore peace in troubled areas as he took his campaign to Zamfara State. Also today, the presidential campaign train of the All Progressives Congress moved to Akwa Ibom, where the party's candidate, Bola Tinubu, promised to make the state an export hub in the region. And at least 59 persons have died, with 150 others injured following a bombing at a mosque in the Pakistani city of Peshawar. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night. Stay safe.